Today's video, we're going to be focusing on engagement sessions in distracting environments. So we're currently working with a dog that was previously dog reactive before training, and we're still training this dog, still rehabilitating it, but today we just want to show some of the work that we'll do with engagement. Now, engagement is a foundational stage to training, but we can also do it at any point in the dog's life and training progression. So all we're focusing on with engagement is, especially out in distracting places, is if your dog gives you eye contact, you're going to say yes, back up, let your dog have a piece of food out of your hand, or you can say good and then deliver the food to your dog. Now this dog right here got a little bit excited, so it did spit up a couple pieces of food. That's fine. Just let it, kind of settle down and then keep moving, okay? So because this dog's later on in its training progression, meaning that it's completed a good portion of its training, it already knows obedience, it already knows accountability. So if we're doing engagement with all these types of scenarios going on with engagement, with accountability, we can have that dog do some obedience in the engagement session. But the number one focus is the dog having a good time, the dog paying attention to us instead of things that are going on around us. So we've got people moving around, we've got kids moving around, we've got different noises and distractions going on, different dogs, stuff like that. And again, we're trying to build up that dog's level of eye contact. Now Kevin is staying in this, area right here in general, which you can do. You can also move around in the environment if you want. He's putting her in a downstate, and this is now incorporating engagement into the downstate eye contact drill, where he moves around with the dog in a downstate, and then once he gets some eye contact, he's going to say good and deliver a piece of food reward to that dog for maintaining good eye contact despite things that are going on around him. So again, the purpose of engagement, build up that dog's eye contact on you, right? So that dog knows how to perform in different environments and what to do in different places, all right? So again, you're gonna cycle through these different things when you're doing engagement in a distracting place. So Kevin's done some different obedience, but he's also doing a lot of downstate eye contact drills. Remember that downstate eye contact is gonna be that calming behavior and calm your dog down as you continue to move through the environment with them, all right? So take this, use this to your advantage, engagement, building up eye contact, helping your dog to have a fun time, right? If you say yes, you're gonna back up and let your dog chase your hand for food just like that. If you say good, you're gonna say good and then deliver food to your dog, so your dog is not expected to get up and move with you, okay? All right, so continuing our discussion on engagement, here's another example of what we can do to build up eye contact in a distracting place with your dog. So we worked a little bit in the same area earlier, now we're moving with the dog, right? So we want our dogs to give us eye contact, yes, when we're stationary, yes, in a downstate, yes, in particular areas, but also whenever we're moving. So that's when we're gonna be practicing our eye contact drills as we walk. So what we'll do, we'll walk, right? We might say the dog's name at first to give us eye contact. If they do that, we're good. Obviously, we'll say good and then reward them along our left leg as we go. However, at a certain point, we're gonna wanna see check-ins from that dog, which means the dog's looking at us on their own, and then we just mark and reward that. So let's say we're walking, the dog checks in with us by giving us some eye contact. We can say good, right, and then reward them, but they initiated that eye contact on their own. So you can do both as you're doing your engagement work. You can both ask them to look at you, right, to build up that association, build up that eye contact, and then later you can have your dog basically, check in with you, and when they check in with you, then you can reward that, mark and reward that as they're going, okay? So take that into account as well when you're building up engagement with your dog in new environments. Another example of engagement we have out in a heavy distraction environment from a dog that is more easily distractible, highly anxious previously, still working through it, still in training, has been through a good portion of the training program again with their training progression, and also knows their accountability. But what Chris is doing is he's working through helping the dog to understand to pay more attention to him than things that are going on around him. And so what he's doing again, he's building up that dog's desire to want to pay attention to him and give him some eye contact. Now, if that dog, becomes reactive for whatever reason, because that's something that the dog's working through, we can say no, we can hold that dog accountable for any type of reactivity. But notice Chris is taking his time. He's trying to make himself very exciting for the dog so that the dog wants to pay attention to him more than things that are going on around him. And Chris is really going to be rewarding that eye contact very heavily. But notice Chris is moving quite a bit because movement is motivating, right? Motion is lotion as well. So as Chris is moving around, it should help to motivate that dog to pay attention to him more, which you can see the dog looking around, right? Let's see what decision it makes. The dog looks at Chris. Chris says yes, backs up, delivers a food reward. So notice how Chris is kind of pausing during this session. What he's doing is he's just waiting for that dog to make the decision to pay attention to him. As soon as the dog makes the decision to pay attention to him, then in that case, he's gonna say yes, which is marking the behavior and rewarding that. And as time goes on, you'll see more consistent paying attention to the handler versus the distractions that are going on around him. And then once that happens, we'll start implementing more of the downstate eye contact drills and things like that. Now notice Chris is upping the requirement to get rewarded right now. He had the dog chose to sit. Chris did not ask the dog to sit there for a second. Now he's asking the dog to sit. Now he's asking the dog to go into a down. Notice it's a little bit of a struggle for the dog because of the amount of distractions that are going on around it. So Chris is just maintaining patience. He's giving accountability. He's using his leash to communicate to the dog. Now he's gonna try and keep some calmness in the dog with the downstate eye contact drill. But notice if you look at the dog's hips are all squared up. The dog's body is all squared up, which is a sign that the dog is super, excited and aroused about being out in a distracting environment. So Chris just takes his time. If the dog gets up like he just did, Chris is gonna take his time and put the dog right back into a down position and then continue with the drill. He's working on the downstate eye contact drill right now, which we've already seen previously. So Chris just moves around the dog, and if the dog gives him any type of eye contact, he's gonna say good and reward him. But if he gets up like he just did, he's gonna say no. He's gonna give him some accountability, and then he's gonna use the leash to guide the dog back into the down position, right? And with a dog like this that is, extremely excitable, extremely anxious, you'd have to take your time with that. Now notice how when the dog went down, Chris marked yes, had the dog chase him for a food reward, right? Chris is trying to help that dog understand what he wants him to do by being very consistent and quick with his rewards, okay? So again, dogs that are very excitable, dogs that have a lot of energy, you take them out someplace and they have a really hard time focusing on you. These dogs really need the engagement work, especially at the beginning, but also as they progress in their training, as you get them out in different distracting environments, right? So here's another example of doing engagement with your dogs in different places. So Lexy here is training 2 dogs from different families. She's working them together out in the distracting environment. And both dogs, again, know their full training progression. They're just getting their repetitions of socialization and distraction work in, okay? Now we have one dog, for example, who's a little bit nervous. This is the dog that's up walking around right now. And Lexy's going to encourage that dog back into a downstay here. And if you notice these types of things with dogs whenever you're out in distracting places with them, it gives you opportunities to figure out what types of scenarios make them a little bit uncomfortable. So that dog might have gotten up and moved around a little bit because there was a kid running around. So if we identify that trigger point, then we understand, okay, this is a situation where we want to do more engagement, right? And so what Lexy's focusing on right now, like we saw with the previous dog with Kevin, is a downstate eye contact drill. But now she has 2 dogs, right? And it's also important for dogs to understand that if they're working with other dogs, that sometimes they're not going to be directly rewarded, or sometimes they're going to tolerate the other dog getting rewards. We've all seen those 2 dogs where one is not okay with the other one getting pet or not okay with the other one getting rewarded, right? So we want our dogs to understand that they're not going to be the center of attention at all times, but also to maintain a high level of engagement. So Lexy's just kind of hanging out. She's maintaining her position. There is some kids moving around, other dogs moving around, and she's focusing on getting good eye contact. And whenever they do give her eye contact, she's going to randomly say good and give them a reward as they're doing that, right? So here again, she's just maintaining her position, rewarding them. Notice the dog that was up earlier, this medium-sized black dog right here, closer to the camera. It just flipped its hips over when it's doing its downstay, which indicates to us that it's getting more comfortable in a downstate position. So whenever you have a nervous dog or a dog that's a little bit insecure, anxious of going new places with new things going on around them, you're looking for these types of body language throughout your engagement session. And what that does is it tells you that you're on the right track, right? The dog's actually starting to calm down, starting to become more confident with everything going on around them, right? So, and then we have the dog over here on the far side that got up a little excited with the person walking up. So Lexy's just gonna encourage that dog back into a down position and then continue with her drill, right? So again, when you're doing the downstay eye contact drill, you're focused on your dog volunteering eye contact to you. Once they give you that eye contact, you say good, and then you randomly deliver a food reward to them. But also take into account, in this case, the body language, which we've talked about previously. So here's just another example of a dog with Erin doing engagement as well. And we're starting off with a downstay eye contact drill. This is just a great drill, as we've seen with Kevin and Lexy, a great drill overall to do with your dog, okay? But Erin also is going to be cycling through her obedience commands and then doing some rewarding for that, right? Building up that eye contact, building up that dog's sustained focus on her and desire to be with her as she's maneuvering around in this training scenario. Again, this dog is, you know, a fair way through its overall training progression. It knows obedience, it knows accountability, but now she's focusing on building up that distraction work, that socialization work, and the dog having a good time in different places, okay? So you can see she's cycling through different obedience positions. She's cycling through a come command. She's cycling through a down command, right? And whenever that dog does that and gives her eye contact, she's gonna say yes, which means the dog can chase her for a food reward, and then it can come get the food reward from her hand. And then if she says good, she's going to deliver a food reward to that dog. So she's focusing on two things with her engagement. Number one, the dog's adherence to the command that she's asking it to do. Number two, getting that eye contact from the dog, okay? Again, also when you're out in places like this, you're looking for any potential trigger points. So if you find that a young child is a trigger or another dog is a trigger, all those types of things you're paying attention to, and you'll work around those, build up your engagement around those things, okay?